I'm delighted to have Naomi Walkland, who's the former VP of Bumble. Rebrand there. And Ali Hanan, who's the CEO, founder of Creative Equals. And they are going to be talking about can't talk this morning, inclusivity, the key to standout campaigns, and also being able to say the words as well, I would say. But anyway, enough of that. Please give them a very warm welcome.
I've got to give you some.
Are we on?
I think so.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay. Good morning, everybody. I'm so honored to be here today and to bring you this woman who's an absolute legend in my eyes, and I cannot wait to see what you do next. But if you don't know Naomi or you haven't read about her already, just a few things just to note about her. She's been recognized as one of the top marketing leaders in the UK by Marketing Week. She was on the most effective leaders on their 100 list, and she's also been on the Power 100 list for Campaign magazine. So, congratulations for making those really impressive lists. Equally, she's on the global board of the Marketing Society, so she sits there and advises the global team of the Marketing Society on how to take their organisation forward, and she's an advisor for OK Mentor. And I guess the question is, why has she received all these accolades? Why does she do what she does? And when you look at what she's done and achieved at Bumble, it's absolutely phenomenal. She's been responsible for expanding their international marketing team, driving new customer growth, and taking Bumble into over 15 markets worldwide. So yeah, phenomenal work. And one of the campaigns that really stood out for us and our team is your My Love is Black Love campaign, which I think has been going for the last 4 years. So yeah, we'll dig into that in just a moment. But I think just to start with, the topic of inclusivity, obviously there's leadership and there's inclusive leadership. So obviously you've been reading and developing and leading your teams. Tell us, what does inclusive leadership actually mean to you?
I think inclusive leadership is such an interesting topic, and as a leader, it's been something that I've been personally working on over the last couple of years and being really intentional about it. But when I think about inclusive leadership, it's really around creating a psychologically safe space for your team where they feel seen, they feel valued, and they feel heard. And also, most importantly, feel like they're empowered to create the best work as well. And to me, diversity isn't just solely diversity of demographics. It's about diversity of backgrounds, thoughts, and experiences. And as a leader, it's really important that you create a space where your team feel like they can authentically show up and contribute in the best way.
Yeah, brilliant. I really agree, feel that, and I think some of your team are actually here.
Yeah.
And I think that whole thing about making sure people are seen and heard within teams and really giving them that autonomy is so absolutely key. Tell me, how have you actually therefore thought about how you're building your team as you're doing your hiring and bringing people in? How are you sort of thinking of that team itself?
Yeah. So at Bumble, where I most recently worked, diversity and inclusion was one of the values of the business. So it meant that, and it's really fortunate, it's also quite rare as well for a lot of companies to have that as their value, but it meant that we were very intentional about prioritizing diversity and inclusivity as well. And a good example of this is in all of our agency briefs, we stated that we wanted diverse teams. So not just diversity of demographics, thoughts and experiences. We really wanted to make sure that our agencies mirrored our values as well. And then when it comes to the teams that I've led and I've built and I've created, I really, really do try to foster diversity and inclusivity as much as possible. And one of the ways that I've done that in the past is, a couple of years ago, a mentor of mine introduced something called a user manual, and he got inspired by another mentor of his. And essentially it's creating a manual on how you like to work and your work style and preferences. So I took an example from that, and also there's an author of a book called Scaling People, which I'd recommend. She's called Claire Hughes Johnson, and she also has a user manual, and it talks about your work preferences, your values, your work styles. And I introduced that on my leadership team. They all created one. Their team subsequently created one as well. but it really meant that everyone felt comfortable to talk about how they like to work, how they like to show up, and also created a bit of a safe environment to do so as well. And the other point that I've done around building teams and being inclusive is that you really, as a leader, do need to make sure that you are actively investing in diversity inclusion. So if they're employee resource groups, can you join them? Can you sponsor them? Can you be an executive sponsor? And try and make sure you are contributing and showcasing that as well, because I fundamentally believe diverse and inclusive teams do produce the best work, they do drive innovation, and they do drive growth as well.
That I couldn't agree with you more. And actually, next week when we've got our own conference, actually called Rise, we are going to be dropping a really. It's going to be breaking news, but that whole point of diverse teams actually producing more effective work and actually being at the heart of creative work is just absolutely so important. So it's brilliant to hear how you've done that. And I think also just thinking about different work styles. Yeah. I'm going to go a little bit off piste and ask you, what's your work style? I'm curious to know.
I feel like you should ask some of the team here, they'll be honest. Yes, my work style is definitely something that I've worked on. I do love a lot of process, which the team will probably say so. I'm pretty organized. But I work better in the morning than I do in the evening. I also stated in my user guide, I've got a young son, he's turning 2 in June, but making sure I'm around for pickup time is really important. I don't sacrifice that time, and I'm really present with my son. So I communicated to my team that I'm not available during that time. Pickup time, bath time is really important to me. But I've got a set way of working in terms of what brings the best out to me in terms of looking at work, reviewing work. And so I outlined that. But it also made me aware, because I've got some people on my team who are the complete opposite. And so how do we bridge that gap, and how do we have understanding of both our strengths and what we like to work?
Oh, I think that's really brilliant.
I would recommend it.
Yeah, so there's one key takeaway for today. Identify your team's work styles and your own. I love that you've also put the boundaries with your team around what time is important to you, and I'm with you. I'm a morning person, by the way. Thinking about that and thinking about diversity, inclusion in the teams, how have you brought that and built that into some of the campaign work that you have been doing?
So you touched upon it. One of the campaigns that Bumble's really recognised for in terms of diversity and inclusion is our campaign, My Love is Black Love. And that launched 4 years ago in 2020. And it was around the main insight that the majority of black people in the UK do not see themselves represented in mainstream spaces. And just to build on that, the majority of black people don't see black love celebrated in mainstream spaces. So 4 years ago, the team and I came up with this campaign around how can we showcase black love, black joy, black celebration. So for the whole month of October, we had members of our community, we had influencers, musicians, journalists, a whole host of people talk about what black love meant to them and the value of it. And we had such an outcry and outpouring from so many members of the community joining in. And so what we encouraged at the end of each video was people would say, my love is, and they would fill the blank. And we had a lot of members of our community say things like, my love is powerful, it's authentic. And it was so great. And being a black woman and seeing the impact a campaign like that had, it was really, really, really touching. And testament to the team and the business, and this goes back to Bumble again, prioritizing diversity and inclusion. This wasn't just a one-off campaign. It's been running every year since then. So the second year was around creating safe spaces for black people to date. That's an issue. And as part of that as well, we also offered a grant so black businesses could get support as well. The third year was around talking about the realities of dating and relationships in black couples. And we had a podcast. And last year was around challenging the assumptions that black women face on a daily basis as well, and celebrating sisterhood. So for me, this campaign personally was really important to me, but also it was really values-driven, diversity, inclusivity at the heart, and also is one of the best performing campaigns the business has had as well. So I think there's something around really investing in underrepresented groups and really making sure you are committing to that and not just having it as a one-off or showing up at Black History Month and then ending it, but really having that commitment as well.
I love the way that you've built that year in and year out, and actually built out different aspects of the campaign to, bring them to life. I think it's a really powerful campaign, and it was one that our team talks about as well, because it was obviously built for the community, with the community, celebrating, honouring, representing, and also talking through putting their challenges out there into the world as well. Great to hear it was the most, one of the most, the best performing ones as well. So that's, really, really, a great standout piece of work. Have you entered it in for some awards? I'd love to see it win some awards.
I think it's won a couple. I'm looking at the team, but I think it's won some in the past as well. So, but it was definitely very recognised, and I think it's regularly featured as a top campaign, and last year was in the Drum's top ads of the week as well.
Yeah, brilliant, absolutely standout work. So I think just moving on in terms of our questions, this is probably the biggest question that's on everybody's mind. And we were just talking before we came on stage that obviously we've seen share prices drop yesterday. It's been a very challenging couple of years. We've seen, obviously, with the advent of war and a lot of uncertainty. Obviously, before that, we've had the pandemic and the kind of surge after that. It's been, a very tumultuous. I would say since the pandemic, it's been a very tumultuous landscape. And in 2024, it still feels like everything's changing a lot, and day by day, everything is, feels like it's all upside down again. In 2024, and thinking about this, what does the future of brand building look like? How would you be thinking about that for your next role, for example? And how would you sort of also think about navigating uncertainty as well, which is obviously what we're working through?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of uncertainty, and I think there's a couple of things when I think about the future of brand building. There's three main things: technology, authenticity, and connectivity. I think we're just seeing technology rapidly advance. I think AI is the forefront of most people's conversations, and for marketers, I think there's a lot of power we can get from it in terms of really understanding our consumers really deeply, and also being able to create really great personalized experiences for them, which is what we know. But I think we need to be careful in balancing innovation in terms of authenticity. How can we make sure, as marketers, we understand our customers, but also making sure that we connect to them in a way which is really going to drive value? So how are we making sure we're bringing our brand purpose and our mission to life in a way which is also authentic as well? And I think consumers now, we know this, are so skeptical about a lot of brands. So I think in light of technology and the advancements we're seeing, we just need to make sure we're not forgetting the soul of a brand, and the way that we are really focusing on making sure we are driving that authentic connection with our consumers too.
Yeah, so really going deep on authentic connection, and also really thinking about meeting them where they are, because I guess in a world where we've also been through the cost of living crisis, etc. I guess it's how do we understand the baseline of where they are, and then and meet them on the journey of uncertainty that we all seem to be riding together. Yeah. In terms of AI, how are you thinking about that? Or how are you sort of approaching that as a strategy within marketing?
I actually use AI a lot day to day in terms of documents, presentations, and so far, and I made a conscious effort of actually making sure I get on board with it. I think there's a whole host of things. I think there's a lot that you can do from a media perspective, which we're seeing. There's a lot of things we can be doing around optimization and targeting, which is really beneficial for us getting closer to our consumer as well. And then also just a lot in terms of the products that we're building as well to help drive, again, the optimization and the connectivity too. But I think as marketers, and I know there's a lot of fear around AI and jobs and replacing, but I think there's still a human element behind AI as well. So looking at ways to leverage it, but also making sure we kind of retain the human element.
Yeah, putting people first. That's what I've really heard in all my conversations with you, is putting people at the heart and the core of everything that you do is almost your personal mantra. So thinking for this amazing audience in the room, and just being really mindful that we are actually over time, just by 20 seconds, it's fine. What would be 3 kind of key takeaways from you for everybody to walk away with and take back to their businesses tomorrow?
Yes, 3 key takeaways. One would be inclusivity. So what are you doing to drive inclusivity in your businesses? Can you do more? Ask your teams, how are they thinking and feeling? What's important to them? What matters to them? The second, and we touched upon this just now, but around people, understanding your customers, spending a lot more time as you get senior in organizations. The reality is you're on meetings a lot. That's just the honest truth around it. But how can you make sure you're investing in really understanding what your consumers want? And the last thing, which is really important to me as well, is just around bravery of work. By creating inclusive environments, it allows people to do their best work, and the best work is often the bravest work as well. And a good test for me is I've had some campaigns when I feel really anxious the night before because I just know that this work is going to be really innovative and really different as well. So how can you have that feeling where you really are creating your brave and best work?
I love that. Thank you so much. Let's give her a massive round of applause.
Thank you, Ali.